prison. Indeed, we are all Johnny Meatsax today, and we are all under the thrall of Le Demiurge. But welcome everybody to AM Bite, because this is where you come to find those red pill suppositories to, what you do with them, put them where the black hole sun don't shine, and to awaken to who you are. And glad to see everybody on this Saturn day. I hope everybody is enjoying your Memorial weekend or whatever you're doing. And today I am very excited for this show because it's always great to have a researcher and which I admire and somebody who is a friend, and that is Maja D'Aoust. Maja, thank you very much for coming back.
Oh, my pleasure, Miguel. I always have such a good time, and I'm so excited to talk to you today about these topics. It's so cool.
Indeed. And also, too, we've got another friend, and that is Graham Pong. Believe it or not, people, I've known Graham for like 15 years, and he knew me back when I was a Roman Catholic and a pretty conservative guy. Graham, how are you doing?
Very good, very good. Yeah, lots of twists and turns on our road together here. And
How people change.
very much looking forward to hearing about the dark side of astrology. I guess that'll be the black sun and some other stuff.
Indeed. Yes, I see people going into the chat. Oh, Christina Marie, good to see you. Hello, Chester, and everybody else. As always, if you have any questions for Maja or complaints for me, please super chat them so we can separate them. And I also should mention that Maja was very helpful. She is one of the people that really helped me with the Elvis book. And in fact, we have a astrological chart started by the wonderful Cat Rose Nelligan. Shout out to her. And Maja also helped with that and just making the book very cool. So I think the world should hear that, right, Maja?
The world needs your book. So it's my divine pleasure to be able to assist you to get it out there into people's eyeballs.
Yes, I truly appreciate it. Yes, I'm actually turning in my last edits. As they say, writers don't finish books, we abandon them. So I'm abandoning it, handing it over
Yes.
to Inner Traditions to this wonderful editor named Chris. And then we shall work on the edits throughout the summer and the fall. So, and Maja has seen the cover, and I will show the cover in a month or two to the world itself. And yes, also too, I should mention is Maja will be joining us at Astronosis, and I'm very excited about that. Here it is. There's the
I'm so
website.
thrilled. Yes.
Yes, we're very excited. So please join us August 9th and 10th at the Theosophical Society. We got a great speakership. We've got Richard Smoley, Ola Wolny, Chris No. There's Maja D'Aoust with a very serious face. I feel like being one of those guys. Come on, smile. Come on, why don't you smile, honey? Smile. No, it's
I
a
get that a
great
lot. Yes.
And great speakers: Dan Morse, Diane Kelly, Mitch Horowitz, James True, Stephen Snyder, Dr. Will Peer. He told me about his presentation yesterday, and it's about realities, how they interact with us. So they're going to blow you away. Obviously, the overall theme is Sophian simulated realities. He's done incredible research. David Block will be discussing Hecate, because we need to talk about the divine feminine. Rhyme will bring always amazing art and DJing, and there might be a speaker or two there. It's not all written in stone. So, Maja, what do you think you will be discussing?
I will be discussing the nature of what wisdom is, how we can use it in the simulated reality through like kind of a word nerd search and show. It's actually going to be, I hope, very entertaining because a lot of people, as you know, think enlightenment is something that it isn't. So right? It's made to be so glamorous, but really it's kind of like you become a babysitter and get tasked with doing counseling or providing counsel, which is really what Sophia is to us, right? So we do all these mirrors and mirroring of things all the way up and down, even through the dimensional simulations. Yeah.
Very true. And you'll also be doing a workshop too with Diane Kelly. We'll be doing a Sophianic workshop, and you will too, right?
Yes, hopefully we'll get to kind of peer over the ledge, so to speak.
That's what
As
it's all about, and that's what it's all about. Have you ever seen the movie Heathers?
Oh, I love that movie. Yes, of course.
To
Yes.
me, enlightenment is how Winona Ryder looks like after her psycho boyfriend, Christian Slater, blows himself, and she's with the cigarette, all bloody and sooty. I
It's
think
very
that's
much
closer
like
to it.
that. Yes,
Hmm.
agree. Yeah,
And you walk in and you pick somebody who needs help, and you just hang out with them.
exactly. That's exactly correct. You hold hands and you talk, really, you know?
Indeed, indeed. So, yes, but so very excited. So please get your tickets for Astronosis. We look forward to seeing you there. The talks are great, but the real magic happens in the hallways, at the socials, in the parking lots when you connect with people and you really exchange ideas, and things come out that are so beyond secret, beyond esoteric, and friendships are made because technology is great, but they are trying to divide us. And one way they divide us is with technology. So we have to
Yes.
play the other game, be
When three
as
or more gather in her name, she will be there. So I think there'll be a lot of magic.
a- amen for sure. Well, awesome. Well, the main event we are here is to talk about, excuse me, Maja's new book, which was just an amazing read, Astrology of the Shadow Self, working with oppositions in your natal chart. And as I've told people, Maja's book on the I Ching, I use it every day or every other day when I'm doing readings. And it's been a real help. Your book on familiars is just amazing. So this one is also so cool. But before we get into that, some people might not know who you are. Maybe talk about how you became a heretic, a evil witch. How did that happen? How did you fall
Yes.
from grace?
Yes, I was born this way, so it was more about a series of realizations that's what I had to do because I just disagreed with everybody, which is part of the topic of the book. Is like everybody seems so, like Johnny Meatsack, as your wonderful video so eloquently puts it. And then if you have some kind of opposing view or a view that deviates, right? So you're a deviant, suddenly it's a threat to the bubble egregore that everybody else is
Mhm.
sort of part of. So using techniques of dissent or uh, exploration is really what got me interested in paganism and witchcraft, because it's all ways to kind of come into greater awareness using divination to try to make sense of this reality, which is not what we think that it is, and trying to do like Nancy Drew type of investigations to just get more data on what the heck is going on around here. But I have been interested in these subjects, I mean, as long as I can remember. I would argue with the priest when we would go to church as a child. So it was kind of just my deal from the get go. Yeah.
Yeah, and when I read your books, what I like is that your thesis is really pretty much laser pointed or whatever. I mean, you say this is what this book is about, whether it's familiars or the I Ching, but you cast such a wide net. I mean, you bring in mythology, comparative religion, psychology, politics. How do you do that? I feel like Stewie and Family Guy when people are playing peekaboo. How do you do that? I mean, it's so broad, but it all comes together around the thesis.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that because I always aim for that target to try to be broad but focused at the same time. So it's for me, I'm lucky because I just read a lot. So it's my nerdiness. So I kind of can gather from all of these different categories, and then I can see the correspondences or patterns in the things that pertain to it. So for example, like with shadow work, so many people only think of Carl Jung, right? If you talk
Right.
to anybody about the shadow, they only think of Carl Jung, but they don't understand that Carl Jung got these concepts from his reading books about alchemy and paganism and being in Vienna, talking to other people that were involved with these kinds of studies, like Sigmund Freud, who were all actively investigating these things. So, one of the things I really wanted to do was broaden people's understanding of what the shadow is and really let them know that this is a concept that has been around a long time. No offense to Carl Jung, but and he never says that he like came up with it either. So
No,
he's very
no.
good, obviously, about citing his sources. But it's such a human situation, the shadow, that of course, funnily, most people don't know about it because as shadows go, they tend to
Yeah.
be good at sticking under the radar. So I thought it was really important as part of the book to show and display the wide range, including mythology and nature as well. I feel like including the just how the natural world contains these kinds of behaviors and energies so that we don't categorize things as evil, or
No.
people holding these behaviors as evil so that we target and scapegoat them, which I feel like is kind of equivalent to targeting someone because they pee, right? Like everybody's got a shadow and we have negative, terrible behaviors as human beings. So I'm kind of tired of people just scapegoating individuals that are expressing some of these behaviors. And then everyone's like ignoring the larger picture of how shadows exist in this reality.
Yeah, indeed, and, as we'll explore, it wasn't not uncommon. It's almost like we lost that, and that's what was
Yes.
great about Freud and Jung and Adler is, like, they taught us, we have a soul, we have a subconscious, call it the spiritual world or whatever, but there is a part of us that the ancients knew about, and humans forgot it during the Enlightenment and the rational,
Yes.
age, and that's why everybody was so damn neurotic in the 19th
Yes.
century. They
I do
needed
think that's
help,
why. Yes. Agree.
and they brought it back. But from Jung, I think we should address it first because people, again, like you said, shadow has become very trendy in the occult new age, just like
Yes.
synchronicity. In fact, it's amazing. Don't you think it's amazing that after 100 years, Jung is so fresh and trendy, and it seems so, his ideas seem so vibrant, and everybody's embracing them. I mean, look at Jordan Peterson and all these other really popular thinkers are
Yes.
just yeah, just going nuts over him, and it
They are
continues
leaving
to
out his shadow though, like
whew.
Carl Jung's shadow has been continually left out. He was a human with a shadow just like everybody else. I mentioned in the book when I look at some of his shadow planets, he was accused of rape by women and notoriously got the nickname the Bull of Zurich for his exploits in that department, and some unethical behavior as someone's doctor or analyst and some of the choices that he made. He personally was very aware of his own shadow and, of course, goes into it in a lot of depth in the Red Book, which I don't know if you've looked at. I assume you
Oh
have a
yeah.
copy, but in the Red Book too, they had so much trouble publishing the Red Book because they were afraid of what it would do to Carl Jung's legacy, right? And this is something I have gone over a lot through the years is many of these scholars or people that research and present information on occult material have to distance themselves from affiliation or practice of occult techniques because
Hmm.
they will get stigmatized or, you know, not taken seriously. And Jung and Freud had discussions with each other about how they could not publicly discuss how they had some, meditative techniques or practices because it would threaten their ability to be taken seriously in the circles of scholars.
Very true. Yeah. And he did cast a big shadow. As I keep saying, one of my favorite sayings today when people are trying to be, when they're projecting their shadow on other people, which people do on Jung and everybody else. I
Yes.
liked him. I liked him not because I knew him, but because he helped me like myself. And that's whether
Oh,
it's a,
that's good.
a rock star or somebody, and then months later you find out, oh my God, they did terrible things. But they were put in our life as a mirror, a way of us helping us go
Yes.
down. And everybody has a shadow. And Jung himself said, the bigger the personality, the bigger the shadow. It's
It's
gods
very
have the biggest
true.
shadows. It's
Yes.
cosmic law.
You can't get out of it because it's nature, and part of, I think, the condemning and repressing shadow so that we can't make progress with some of these negative behaviors is that it's related to how our relationship with nature is, right? And Sophia, for that matter, as well. So it's
Right.
the removal of those things from our beingness that is causing an exacerbation of these behaviors getting dealt with incorrectly, in my opinion.
Very true. Yeah. I mean, you can't repress the shadow, but you can't just allow it like so many rock stars to roam around and never integrate it and go, oh, it's my shadow. You destroyed the hotel room. You had affairs. I mean, no, no, you can't do that either. But I think it's interesting. One thing about Jungian shadow, well, let me back up. Again, the shadow is a complex, as Jung said. And I think that's where modern people, or a lot of people, modern esoteric people, and I keep repeating it, his complex ideas are the most important thing he had, more than synchronicity, the
Yeah.
collective unconscious, you name it, complexes are. And that's the one part that everybody kind of skips over. So I keep giving that
Mm,
warning. And it's the hardest thing to deal with because you can't defeat your complexes. You can't overcome them. You can't dispel them. Somehow you just have to, I think, as Gordon White said, you have to become larger than them, but even then they're
mm,
still there. So that's your
yes.
shadow. But the shadow, I think, in a normal way, and I forget who was the Jungian analyst who said it, is everything I do not wish to be. And that's a simple way to deal with it, because
Yes.
in Jungian terms, a shadow sometimes is not bad. It's not your traumatized childhood or whatever it is. It's something good. Like, for example, you were a kid and you started playing the piano, or you started playing soccer, and you realize this is what I want to. You've had that urge, that call, and whatever. But then as life came and, oh, I need to go to university, you had relationships, you kind of pushed it away,
Yes.
and that creates a shadow, and it
Yes.
manifests throughout your life in weird ways, disease, maybe every time you listen to the piano you get anxiety, but it's a good thing that wants to come out and say,
Yes.
hey, let's go back and play the piano. Doesn't mean we can play the piano at weddings or at a bar like Billy Joel. Doesn't mean we have to be like a rock star, but something like that. Don't you agree?
You said it so well. It's something that gets subverted, but it's a desire that's natural. And if you do it, you have kids like I do. You can see you can't repress them or they're going to act out. And so the shadow is the same way. If you think you can eliminate some natural desire that you have, you're going to get disease. You're going to become ill, right? So you have to, but we can't always do it. So we have to be able to raise awareness about what this is and how to accommodate it, how to provide mechanisms for it so that individuals have a higher awareness of the importance of being able to dance with their shadow and give it some expression and give it like safe places to run around.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very true and agree. So, but as you said, Jung wasn't the first one, and this comes from a very ancient tradition. So, why don't we explore that? Of course, as I emailed you the other day, I was like, oh, let's raise some hackles. I got something here. And that
Yes.
was towards the beginning of your book, Astrology of the Shadow Self. You say, the darkness belongs to the divine feminine, Tell us about that so you can maybe make some feminists irate out there.
I mean, it's as simple as looking at Kali, right? Like, it's no mystery, but for some reason that gets left out a lot. So, the dark feminine is power, right? Like Kali, who comes out and is pure power, which is horrifying, right? It's also where creation comes from. So when I say divine feminine too, it's not like a gender statement. It's an energetic correspondence to the type of energy that it has, and that's negative energy. And when we say negative energy, people think that means bad, right?
Right.
No. We live in a universe that has protons and electrons. Electrons are negative energy, and you can't get rid of it, right? Negative ions are necessary for life, and you're not going to be able to just remove it because you don't like it or it's scary or it's dangerous, right? So, very much the darkness of the divine feminine and negative energy is what permits life to exist, right? Our entire galaxy theoretically came and was birthed out of a supermassive black hole, for example.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the inquiries into origins of matter find out that it comes from dark matter, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that actually makes up the majority of the universe. We have antimatter. So, like you mentioned in that quote, everything that is not me, right? A big inspiration for how I figured out how to do the shadow chart was the concept of the Antichrist or the anti self, which is the shadow work, like you said, is everything that you detest and despise, which obviously is very uncomfortable, but is part of that totality of reality, which includes that dark feminine energy, that cave, the womb, the
Mm-hmm.
place that is still death, right? It's the womb to tomb energy, is dark
No.
feminine energy, and we don't have control over it. So everybody freaks out about it. It's the collective unconscious, right? So that by nature is feminine because it's just like if something is created or born, it must be like have a place of quiet, a place of rest so that it can be nurtured and it can grow. If we had just everything go, 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 like we're kind of taught in this culture where you just have to keep going and do stuff all the time and never sit and rest, right? Maybe do some meditation, do a little reflection, do a little introspection. This is divine feminine stillness energy of that cave, of that womb, of that tomb, right? Yes.
Well said. And again, this tradition existed in ancient times. I think you bring up a few of these goddesses, and you just brought up Kali, which she's the most famous one. But you bring up in Hinduism, you got Chaya, and of course in the Sumerian myth, you've got Ereshkigal, who yeah, she's a pretty cool lady. She eats clay and
Yes.
drinks dirty water. She has no loving mother, father, brother, or sister. She's quite a lady.
Quite a lady. You don't hear enough about her, honestly. And it's also the idea of this counterpart, right? So our shadow in a lot of the ancient world is our underworld double, right?
Mhm.
So that I don't think people talk about this idea enough, but in witchcraft and paganism, it's called a shade, right?
Mm.
We call it our shade, and there is actually a lot of work, not so much in the pop culture, of course. There are a lot of these. I feel like the way people are engaging now in pop culture is they're having these workbooks where you do journaling to kind of do shadow work, which isn't
Yeah.
exactly the same as in these esoteric traditions. It was underworld work, which, like you mentioned, one of the speakers we'll be getting into is Hecate, right?
Mhm.
And
No.
the underworld goddesses. Underworld because it's literally under the earth where we go when we die. So if we understand that space time isn't linear, our dead self already exists. Wait, I'm
I
gonna say
love it.
I'm gonna say it again. You as your dead self already exist in time space. Right? When
Love
you
it.
do certain shamanic techniques, like I learned with Dr. Kelvin DeWolf, you're taught to go before you're born and after you die. And so part of doing shadow work means you have to have a confrontation with your death, right? It's a little bit
Mm,
like when Luke Skywalker goes into the
right.
tree and sees Darth Vader, right? And it's his own face. It's kind of like that type of experience, but your shade is here the whole time, almost like beckoning to you and trying to kill you, trying to draw you closer to it. So it's really just better to learn techniques to integrate and kind of close that gap and bring it together. And in classical philosophy, they talked about it all the time too. One of my favorites is, and I mentioned this in the Familiars book, is Percy Shelley's double or shade. Other
Right.
people literally saw, right? And there's several stories in around that time period where people reported seeing individuals double, shadow, or shade as a manifestation of a thing. Yeah.
Pretty scary. So you could say Ereshkigal is Inanna's shadow. They're sisters, but they're the
Yes.
same. And then and I think in the Hebrew, you've got Ashira, but then you've got Anat, who's my favorite because somebody mentioned Sekhmet, Kali, but Anat was even worse. I mean, she was just
Yes.
she was a whore. She would sleep with anybody. She would eat
How
anybody.
dare she?
I know she was like out of control. And
Yes.
then there's that story where Baal goes down to death and gets killed, and he's trapped in the underworld. She goes down and kills Death to get him out. That's
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 right.
what she's like.
That's how
She was
gnarly.
like
You gotta be pretty gnarly to kill death. Yeah.
yeah. She's my. I mean, obviously Artemis also scares me, but I actually worship her because Artemis has a little bit of compassion, little bit
Yes. Yeah.
there. But so you have again Ashira, Anat, maybe Sekhmet, Isis. All these goddesses have sort of their and we forget too that Persephone, when she's a goddess of spring, but when she goes underworld, she takes her job seriously. She's got her
That's right.
papers and her office. She's the goddess of death. Hades
She's the
is the goddess
queen
of
of the
the underworld.
damned. Yeah.
Yes,
Hmm.
she is. She
That's
is. She's
right.
like, and she is. Odysseus says that when he's in Hades, the one god or creature that he's afraid of is Persephone because that's her shadow side.
That's right. Exactly. And we can't get out of it. And part of it is universal physics. Okay. Like everything that is has an anti thing.
Mm.
That's the physical universe that we're dealing with. We have a thing and you have a no thing, and everything has a double. Every piece of particle of matter has an antichrist to it, including us, right? A lot of people, when we think about physics or biology or science, we tend to leave ourselves out of it. And right? When we're reading
Right.
about entanglement or things like this, we forget, hey, that's also us, right? So I think it's really important for people to integrate these concepts of physics that include these ideas with also ourselves and how, as human beings and the matter that we're made up of, they obey these same laws.
Exactly. Well said. And what about you, Graham? Let's bring you in. Graham is in the comic book industry. Are you thinking of The Shadow or how Hulk is the shadow of Dr. Banner or Batman is the shadow of Gotham or anything like that?
Well, one of the obvious ones that jumps out to me is Cloak and Dagger, where you had, the girl was the light and the boy was the dark, and the symmetry between the two of them. And you got to agree with you on a knot there, 100%. Another one, like I said, Sandman fits into that one. You know,
Oh, yeah.
the Sandman and the Shade. The Shade was another good character. He was kind of
Yes.
one of those anti-villains, not quite villain, not quite hero kind of characters.
Exactly. Well, that's always used that. I have this weird thing that I like horror movies. I don't watch a lot of TV, but once a week I watch a really intense horror movie, and my wife is disgusted when I tell her the plot. So, oh, I'm just doing shadow work. I
It's true
kind of
though.
am.
It is. You are. My boyfriend loves horror movies too. He's like an
Uh,
insane Clive Barker fan.
I love
But it
Clive
is
Barker.
necessary. And the thing about horror is that facing and confronting death and the gore and our physical bodies, which we just don't tend to do as we float through the day in our heads, you know? So having those confrontations, I view it as like um, practicing, right? It's like practicing the confrontation.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Another thing you wanted to discuss too, we're talking about is the idea of virginity and the goddess.
Yes. I think one of the reasons people have a hard time wrapping their minds around the power of the dark feminine energy is because of how it's been so distorted by concepts of sexuality over the course of the years. And in a lot of these ancient texts, they're using these words that aren't just talking literally about sexuality. So there's other meanings of the word virgin. Doesn't mean a woman that hasn't had sex, right? In a lot of those concepts. And when you get into the histories of the Vestal virgins and what activities they were actually performing and what a lot of these services were, they were helping people through death, through underworld things, right? This whole school of the virgins was meant to assist people to have initiations
Mm,
into these goddess mysteries, which were about confronting your shade, confronting the shadow. So this was some of the most ancient form of shadow work was done by creating a kind of space like that. The virgin use of that word was also applied to women in terms of the Vestal virgins that didn't take orders from a husband.
mm,
They had their own thoughts. So back in the day, women weren't permitted to make decisions, right? Because that was more the landholder's job.
mm,
Even a lot of men weren't permitted to make decisions. So I don't even feel like it was gender based. I feel like it's a statement about not having an overlord
mm.
making these choices for you. And so part of the shadow work is that you must virginize your mind because otherwise you will be under the oppression of your shadow will lord you and drive your decision making, much like you said with the repression of the piano playing. If you aren't your own master, your shadow lord will come after you, which is like what we were talking about too in our emails. That's where the archons come into the situation, because as you deny these parts of yourself, they're going to subconsciously leave you open to being run by an archon.
Definitely, and yeah, and as we talked, virgin was also an honorific title. Aphrodite was called a virgin. Isis, it meant a complete woman who knew herself, a very powerful goddess in
Yes.
Gnosticism. Barbello is called the Virgin Mother, even though she kind of gives birth to the entire universe. And and of course, wouldn't you say the great Gnostic poem or a text under the perfect mind? That's it, right? It's got
That's right.
shadow, it's got I am the virgin and the whore, it's got everything you
Completely.
need. Mhm,
Completely accurate. Yes. So I feel like it's a shame because so many people with their hangups and repression of shadow end up diverting the shadow because they can't handle the idea of sexuality, right? So it's pretty ironic, I feel like, that that's the way that it went down. But it's just shadow behavior to place that meaning of the word virgin in there and the importance on it. Yeah.
Indeed, indeed. Yes, we've got, for those of you who are just joining us, Maja D'Aoust is here to discuss her book, Astrology of the Shadow Self. Highly recommend it. I don't do astrology, and like I've talked to Maja, I know I'm projecting my shadow. I've got some blockage about the stars. You've helped me work with this, the stars, and I can do I Ching, but something I really have a really bad trauma about these damn stars. I just like go blank. But at least I'm at the stage where I'm a little bit getting closer to the complex and height, far from outgrowing it. But it is a process. And for all your books, these are all your drawings, right?
They are, yes, I do the art in there as well. It's all illustrated. There's lots of art in it to help. I feel like it's helpful for people to visualize some of the concepts with the art. I don't know, it helps me all the time. So, and it's fun to do. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very cool. Yeah, all your books have the same vibe, and you've got that art behind you. Talk about the masks and the mind parasites. So it's
Yes,
all there.
it's
Do
true.
you, what about, well, while we are on the topic of ancient times, you said even the Egyptians knew about it with this concept of the shoot. That's like
That's
one of
right.
our souls, right? Or could you tell the audience about that?
Yeah, it's the one that is underworld, right? So I don't know how familiar people are with Egyptian kind of myths or creation stories, but in a lot of the papyrus that are left and what we have, which by the way, I don't know if people know this, but there's so many even translated papyri that
Mhm.
I think a lot of them are sitting in the basement museum in London probably. But it's like so much work. That is one of the things they're going to try to get AI to do. I've been reading that they're going
Mhm.
to set to task AI to try to translate a bunch of these scrolls, which is kind of cool. So maybe we'll find some more data. But a lot of the scrolls would talk about the underworld predominantly. Obviously, everybody knows how they would make mummies and kind of that process. But one of the main purposes of the creation of the mummy was to preserve portions of the soul. And so they would depict images and talk at length in a lot of the papyrus, especially the papyrus of Annie or Anu. I forget which one it is off the top of my head. And then, of course, in the book of Coming Forth by Day, which is mostly known as the Book of the Dead, it's all up in there all over the place. So it's they have so much information and data about it. It's kind of remarkable. Even in occult circles, people don't talk about the shade business so much. Yeah.
Indeed. Yeah. Again, it's trendy, but once you get down and dirty, whew,
Yes.
the places you will go. Oh, so painful sometimes.
So true. And with the astrology too, I know it is like maybe to confront part of your shadow. It's very data heavy, right? So I think approaching astrology for a lot of people in a way that's deeper than looking at your horoscope in the back of Cosmopolitan magazine. You're looking at familiarizing yourself with a lot of concepts, a lot of technical information, symbolism, that you then have to kind of learn and memorize. But ultimately, it's very much mythology and it has archetypes in the system of astrology. So if you know mythology, it's not that daunting. And I really like a lot of astrologers who approach it from that angle of the story of the myths. And I feel like like if there's listeners out there that just can't deal with astrology, try to view it from that angle, that it's kind of like a narrative or soap opera about how the characters interact with each other is essentially the gist of it. So by looking at astrology to do shadow work, I certainly wasn't the first person to put those two things together. A lot of astrologers are Jungians too, because Carl Jung did a lot of astrology, right?
Yeah.
And divination, obviously, he talked about it all the time. And so to use the chart, um, your natal chart, to get information about your shadow, I feel like is just a valuable tool that we can engage so that we can, not have to do maybe all this work because our shadow acts up. So it can bring a lot of it up into our awareness by dealing with it on the archetype or archon level through the astrology.
No, makes perfect sense. So maybe explain it or let me know if we're hot or cold because again yesterday we had David Block, Chester, he's a listener. They're both into Lurianic Kabbalah. I
Uh-huh.
love Lurianic Kabbalah.
Yes.
I love yeah. And also obviously I love Shabbatai Zevi because I think he's just again he's like Elvis and David Bowie. He's just and Jung, such a mess, but such a brilliant mind and magician. But anyway,
Yeah.
I like these crazy people. But in the Kabbalah, obviously, there's the Sephiroth, but most people ignore the fact that there was probably a left hand, a shadow Sephiroth in there.
Yes.
Is this more or less what we're dealing with? There's a shadow separate chart?
Exactly. That's correct. So, I've been doing divination, I don't even know at this point, probably like 30 years, not to, you know, tell my age or anything, but I'm actually kind of old, older than I think a lot of people think. But anyway, so if you look at most divination systems, they all have a reverse element to them. So I Ching, a lot of the hexagrams, you can flip them upside down and they're the other hexagram. They have like a mated pair.
Mm,
So with the archetypes as well, if you look at archetypes, they're going to have like relationships or marriages or partnerships with these components, these other sides of themselves, right? Like Superman and Bizarro kind of
of
deal
course.
is what it
Classic
is.
example.
I know. So maybe Graham will appreciate that. But it's like the alter egos of superheroes and comics and the creation of these alter egos that are in these partnerships and forms is part of the symbolism. So the Sephiroth are absolutely in that, and you're not really going to get a revelation from any particular Sephiroth unless you deal with its opposition, because you're not going to get it in its totality. You're
Mm,
going to only be getting half the story, right? So to look at and examine their pairs or partners that are their shades, you kind of aren't really going to get those revelations until you're able to even have that concept that there's going to be part of it that you can't see or can't know. And then you're going to have to receive the unknowingness, that darkness, that alter ego, the Antichrist, and then you're going to be able to proceed through it.
fascinating. Yeah, I didn't know about the I Ching. So in astrology, how would it work? And again, I have no idea how it works, but
Yes.
I
Well,
know
we
you sent
can.
a graphic. Let's see if
Yeah,
I
the
can
graphic
pull
I
it up.
feel like does a pretty good job. So as I was thinking about it, and I do shadow work with people all day long in my work.
Oh, okay, good.
So as I was thinking about the chart, I was like, oh my God, you can just flip it. Like it's literally just a reversal that you can do. So I had the insight that you could make an entire chart based on your birth chart just by making a mirror image of it and creating that anti image of it, which would be basically just the exact oppositional position. So, for example, let's say you are an Aries and you have an Aries sun, that means your shadow sun would be Libra, right? If
Hmm.
you're Sagittarius like me, your shadow is going to be Gemini, right? It's just going to be directly opposite. For those that don't know, your birth chart is on a circle, right? Like you see in the
All right,
image, it looks like a pizza or a pie, right? And
all right.
so that circle is 360 degrees, obviously, and then it's split. So if you go to the 180-degree point away from any planet in your chart, you'll find the shadow. So, very much like how we have a shadow, if the light hits me, the shadow is going to be 180 degrees behind me, right?
Makes sense.
So,
Yeah.
when you turn and you're facing the light, your shadow's projected behind you, right? So it's exactly that, and it happens in reality in outer space. If the sun is hitting Jupiter, Jupiter casts a shadow. All of
Mm-hmm.
the planets cast a shadow in real life, and thus we can see with eclipses, right? When there's
Mm-hmm.
a shadow
Right.
that comes from that, every single night we fall into the Earth's shadow. Night is literally the Earth's shadow. So the planets have physical, real umbras or shadows that they project, and it's done by tracking it in that way. So I was like, oh my God, I have to write a book about this because it's a perfect way to find your oppositional partner, right? And
Mm-hmm.
what I've been finding as I go through this with people is that a lot of people are partners with their shadows. They'll have them in their lives, like sisters, brothers, friends. They'll always have somebody around them that's holding that sun that is their shadow or oppositional energy. Sometimes it could be like your nemesis, right? If you have, I encourage people, it's kind of interesting because if you have a nemesis and you look up their sun sign, it might be your shadow. So there could be something very specific
Ah,
that you have to learn from this enemy through the oppositional relationship. Yeah,
fascinating. So when you work with clients, you're not just giving them astrological readings, but you're giving them a shadow astrological reading as well. And that's don't want to abuse the word more holistic. It's
it
more
is.
total,
It
or
is. Yes, it's
then people
gives
don't
another
freak out.
side. Well, if someone's dealing with an issue, like most people will, it's funny. My client the other day was like, "Well, I have something going on if I call you," because a lot of the times they'll call me if they're dealing with something, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
to get the insight, if you can include the shadow nature of what's going on, so that they can confront that element, it can give a lot of understanding to the situation, is what I find.
No,
Yeah,
for sure, for sure. And again, I think it's more complete than the idea of syzygies and dualities. I mean, I'm thinking most people assume Aphrodite was the goddess of love, but she was also the goddess of war. Same with Athena, wisdom, war.
that's right.
These gods were more complex. They had they didn't have jobs, but again, Persephone, spring, death. They had to deal with their own shadow side and work with them, and they were one and the same.
That's correct. So, if you're having like any kind of thing that you're dealing with, or even a block that you can't seem to get past, looking into some of these shadow archons or archetypes, or as I say in the book, I call them darketypes.
Archetypes. I love it.
Because there are darketypes, and you have to include that in your awareness. I do feel like even if it's too crazy to get into some of them, because obviously there's a lot of trauma involved in shadows,
Yeah.
so it's not just fun and games, and there's going to be either you receiving trauma from somebody holding a shadow behavior, or you've been traumatized too. It's not fun to get into for sure, but it's very helpful when you can raise it into your awareness, because then you can kind of like release or integrate some aspects of it.
Yeah, I think that's what worries a lot of people because obviously you are going to deal with trauma and you are going to deal with trauma that you might not even know about. So,
Yes.
how do you prepare clients for that one? I mean, I have my techniques, but let us know about yours.
I usually just dive right in. I
Yeah, yeah,
don't
yeah. It's
really
like,
prepare them,
I think
but
I've been to so many therapists and AA meetings. I think I've just like spilled my entire life.
it's good to do that,
Yeah.
it's cathartic. So usually I'll just kind of bring it up and see if they would like to take a look at it. So I'll try to, I guess I don't really prepare them, but it's more like an invitation to
Mhm.
see, or like a disclaimer if I'm going to enter some territory, to see if they have, um, you know, uh, a desire to get into it or not. But most of the time, they approach me because they need to do that thing. So it's what we're there to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the pain becomes eventually the pain is so unbearable. You're like, I'll face my demons. I'm just gonna do it. I think
That's right.
for
That's
me,
right.
I know active imagination has worked a lot. In other words, if trauma comes my way, I will just immediately create a situation where I hug my younger self, or I hug that person that hurt me, and I
Oh,
realize I'm in charge of reality. Time is not linear. It's all a story. So it works very well. It wasn't at first, it was a bit hard, but now I'm like, okay, this is good. I can face these things.
you can. We can do it. We really can. And it's funny you do the hug because that's one of the things I say in the book is you have to cradle your shadow like a child, you know? You have to the way that we're going to deal with this isn't going to be through public shamings or, crucifixions because
Right.
it's just heads of a hydra. For every person you crucify for murdering someone, right? There's going to be a million more
Yeah.
that are going to do it again. So there has to be some kind of way that we can have a breakthrough as human beings to kind of keep it close to our chest in that hug way to not send it away or cast it out because you're not going to cast it out. We're going to have to figure out how to hug it out.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't think it should be all like that movie Good Will Hunting with Robin Williams hugs. It's not your fault. It's not. Yeah, when we were children, bad things happened to us. Bad things happened in past lives. It wasn't our fault. We were at the
Yeah,
wrong place at the wrong time, and this immense pain. And there were times in our lives we lost it, but just go and said, you were insane at the time. You were not wise. You were carrying on this ancestral lineage of abuse or allowing yourself to be abused or addiction. So there's a
yes,
solution, but like you said, shame is bad. And I love your example, Maja. You talk about Cain and Abel is the great example. I think Abel is kind of like a shadow because he tries to bury it, and what does Abel do? Screams from the ground, and
that's right.
like the
He does.
telltale heart, I
His
suppose.
blood screams. It is like the telltale heart. You're exactly on point with that one. You're not going to be able to bury the corpse but then it's a big deal for everybody's got to help each other because if you've been a victim of some kind of person's shadow trauma upon you, you're not going to be able to deal with it and heal that person. That's toxic positivity too, and I talk about that in the
Mhm.
book as well. I don't like that garbage one bit. So you can't just think you can heal this if someone's been abused or something terrible. So we all have to help each other with this shadow integration and with
Mhm.
accountability for the people, trying to find different ways to deal with it. But I do feel like, as I say in the book, that if we can raise our awareness up to it, that could be like a pretty good starting point. And then I like your active imagination technique. I'm going to have to start using that one too.
No, I need as many tools. Yeah, if you have to, like I said, I'm always asking for tools when you deal, especially when you get into that like red pill moment where you go, oh my God, I did this to that person, or that person did this to me, or some
Yes.
ancestor speak. It's kind of like in the movies where the camera just like pans into you and you hear that music. And or like in the Sixth
Yeah.
Sense when he realized he's the dead person. So you might realize you're the shadow in this world.
Sometimes you're the bad guy, and I think I mean, Greg, you in comics, maybe you can chime in here with that idea of the villain and how the villain holds that space and how everyone just wants to see themselves as the hero. But we want to vicariously see the villain in these stories, but never identify with that villain.
Yeah, isn't Batman Superman Shadowgram?
Yeah, I was going to say some of that has definitely changed, with Alan Moore and some of the more modern writers. But, for a lot of it, it's the idea that the villain is the hero of their own story. That their motivation is, they don't see their motivation as necessarily bad. They just see it as basically a different goal than what the hero has. And I was just going to throw my tool on as far as that goes, is radical acceptance, where,
Mm.
it's basically a judgment free, as you just view it as cause and effect. That happened. You don't view it as good or bad. That's a higher level one, but you have to accept that it did happen. That's my big toolkit for accepting there. So, tag.
That's a big deal, acceptance. I feel like it's really hard to get there for everybody. So that could be good enough, That's a goodie. Yeah.
Indeed, it is. Well, here's a couple of super chats before I get to a few more questions. But Baza Novik, we love serious witches. Well, there you go, Maja. Thank you. You're a serious witch. Thank you for that. And then Chester, he says, may I borrow darchetypes? Is that how we should spell it?
I like it. Borrow it. It's probably other people have thought of it. I haven't looked it up, but I just was like writing the book and I was like, oh my God, these are total archetypes. I like your spelling of it. I can't remember how I spelled it in the book, but go for it. That's good.
I have it here. I think you read, let's see, Darch.
Oh, CH. Yeah.
Yeah, ed types. Yeah. So
Good.
that's how you changed it. Awesome. And what would you say, since we're talking about Gnosticism, because I was thinking people always say the demiurge is Sophia's shadow, but I
Uh-huh.
always think Sophia is the pleroma shadow. And there's no
Yes.
wrong or right. These myths, you play with the ideas because, the pleroma needed to figure out, well, I am the eternal mind, but I've got to contemplate negative things. So we're just going to throw it on Sophia and kick her out of the place. They did it with Cybele, right? Yeah, that's like, somebody's got to carry these dark thoughts. We're manifestation. So it's going to be you. Bye.
Well,
And
and
then
then they
her.
fall, right? So
Yeah.
when that
Mhm.
gets put like on Sophia, I'm going to be talking about this at the conference, actually, this part of the story. But when they fall, it's the descent into matter, right? So the shadow, which is why we have dark matter all over the place. So that, ironically, those stories of the ancient Gnostics are true in physical reality in terms of physics, right? With how the material world is. And so these goddesses who are the creator aspect that has to be done with, that's like in the Kabbalah, it's the Hokmah, right? Which
Right.
I'll get into a lot more there at the conference. But the Hokmah is necessary and a component of creation. So the shadow gets projected on Sophia, and then there's the fall, so that it can like precipitate into matter, and matter can come into being, right? And then
Mhm.
it gets husked, right? It gets put in the husk, or
Right.
the cloak, the veil, the cloak and dagger cloak. I love that example that Graham made. But you have to, in Gnosticism, they're actually describing a process of matter coming into being through the shadow of that, which then, of course, the demiurge would be, right?
Right.
Because that's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, and he does say that he creates the world as a reflection of the pleroma. So yeah, I mean, the Gnostics were playing in different levels. It wasn't a simple. It's a very multi-layered myth,
Yes.
and it's very complex. But you see it all over. And yeah, for the audience, obviously, John Lamb Lash has done a great job of making the Gnostic myth scientific. Peter Canova came out with a book last year, and from the Big Bang to quantum physics, he just explains it very much in Gnostic terms for those of you who are interested in the science and so forth.
Oh, that's good to know. I'll check that one out.
And also, one thing you do talk about in your book too, Maja, is the idea of course, the other danger, I guess it is a shadow, is the idea of spiritual bypassing and lovey-dovey, love and light sort of mysticism where, I don't know, you don't even suppress its shadow. You don't even think you have it. You're already there, right? You're pretty critical of that.
Yes, it's very toxic in my experience to people too that engage these communities that are doing it. Like I've had clients who will lose children, and the people that are spiritually bypassing are just trying to tell them, oh, well, that was just your soul contract, or like these
Oh,
severely
no.
offensive
Uh,
statements that are like, well, you can just like manifest your way out of like dealing with stuff, or just go over it, or like it's okay kind of stuff, without ever dealing with or addressing the negative energy. And they're like, ooh, bad vibes, right? No bad vibes allowed, or whatever, which basically means that no one in these communities is permitted to have or express trauma, because that's going to bring everybody down or bring the vibe down. So this is happening all over the place with a lot of these positive thinking communities, which when I wrote my book, The Secret Source, a lot of it was a critique about how that movie, The Secret, was utilizing hermetic material in a way to
uh,
try to create spiritual materialism and trying to do positive thinking, which is fine. We're going to do positive thinking, and that's, how it is. But what has happened in these communities is that they are now having a kind of superstition that if something bad happens, it was your fault because your thoughts have brought it to you, or you attracted that negative thing to you because your thoughts weren't positive enough, or you didn't do the manifesting well enough. And I'm like, imagine saying this to like a mother whose child is shot by the police or something, or
yeah,
that
yeah.
you
Or
face severe things like rape, and that you didn't attract that to yourself through your thoughts. I'm so
yeah,
sorry.
why give
So
a homeless person money or food? They deserved it. Yeah,
they
that's
deserve it. It's like
horrible.
a
Yeah,
weird victim blaming thing that
yeah.
I think is negating the existence of negative energy through its like double positivity. So it's really creating a lot of problems, and it's because they're erasing the shadow element of humanity through some of those techniques. Not all of them, obviously. And like I said, like, you want to think positively. I'm not denigrating having happy thoughts, obviously, but you can't just like,
Manifesting is great. I'm sure you don't mind. I try to, but again, like you said, I don't forget the shadow, the dark side.
you can't take it out. So if and so many people have like then be shamed because their manifesting isn't working or whatever, or something bad happens to them, and then they feel shame and guilt because they must just not be good at manifesting, or not a good spiritual person, so they couldn't do it. It's like creating a lot of neurosis. Yeah.
Yes, it's always something. It's always something. And you do divination. What type of magical practices do you also embrace?
That's a really big question.
Yeah, what
um,
don't you?
I
What don't
know.
you do?
I like to look at everything and
Yeah.
get into everything and try things. I have my personal practice that I do involves techniques from Dr. Kelvin DeWolf, which are basically like, if I was to try to compare them to anything, although I feel like he, in his own right, did it, it's like Raja Yoga, or like Neigong, which a lot of people know about Qigong, but they don't know about Neigong, which is for every yoga practice, or Tai Chi or Qigong, there's an external physical component, right? Where you do the postures and the poses, but then there's an internal group of exercises that you're supposed to do as well. And similar to the shadow, these internal exercises seem to have been eradicated from most people's understanding, and yoga has kind of turned into jazzercise, where it's used mostly for exercise, which is great. We have to exercise and be healthy, but there was these far deeper subconscious techniques that are actually working directly with the shadow, with the subconscious, which includes your body, the things that part of in the book that I talk about a lot in every planetary example is the nature component of shadow, which is if there's things that are outside of your awareness, some of those things are breathing, how your heart beats, right?
Mhm.
How the things your body is doing on a daily basis that you will have no idea about. These are below your awareness level. And so as we go deeper into shadow work, we find that all of these spiritual techniques, which are attempting to raise the subconscious mind up into awareness, is shadow work, because you're trying to place your consciousness more into your unconscious mind,
Mm.
if that makes sense. And when you do that, you come into power.
Makes sense and beautifully said. And you, for your clients, you offer I Ching, astrology, any other divination,
Oh yeah, I do tarot as well,
tarot?
of course, most popular. And then shadow charts. For sometimes a lot of people want to do like clearing techniques as well, to kind of like virginize themselves, right? So I really enjoy doing a lot of the clearing techniques to try to just scoot everything out, right? A lot of our culture tends to think we can just keep piling more things on, right? Consume, consume, consume.
Mm.
So part of what I try to do to help anyone gain clarity is get rid of stuff, man. Do a clearing. Try to empty things out. Try to make an empty space. Try to create a cave, create a vacuum, right? So that you can navigate a little better. Yeah.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense too. I was thinking movies that represent the shadow. I know Graham gave us some comic books. I was thinking of the Hulk, which is just a remake of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. That seems to be a good shadow alter ego, Antichrist
Very
self.
much. Well, there's a
I think
great one. I know you're a horror movie fan. Did you see Us?
oh god, yes, yes, I did
That
like
is
it a lot.
totally
And it's very
underworld.
Gnostic too. Very
So
Gnostic. It's got
Gnostic.
both.
I had so many synchronicities when I saw that one too. So he was right on the money with that one. Was really great.
Yeah, I think underrated is Jordan Peele. I think he could be one of the great directors of our time because he takes risks.
Yes.
He pushes things, and people say, "Well, it doesn't make sense," but I like what he's doing. And from Nope to Us, I think the one that really comes out to me is the Darren Aronofsky's Black Swan with Natalie
Yes.
Portman. Isn't that it? She's
Yes. Oh,
trying so hard to be a
totally.
ballet that this other self comes out and destroys her.
Her doppelganger.
That's it. That's
And
it.
that's in the book.
Literally.
I talk about it too. That part of the double is the same concept as the doppelganger. So any of these, there's so many good films that try to address it in these ways. But Black Swan is a great example. Can you think of any too, Graham?
Two of the ones that jump to my mind are Inception and
Oh,
also
yeah.
Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Oh, that's a good one too. Yes.
For a
Really good.
shadow
Well, because
or for
it's
not?
all subconscious, right? That he's got to go through the layers, kind of like Inception, and correct me if I'm
Oh
wrong,
yeah, yeah.
but
Oh yeah,
going
because
through
Jim
the
Carrey
journey.
makes himself forget. He suppressed. He
Exactly.
really did suppress
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, that makes perfect sense because again, it's going to come out. But that's the day. Isn't that the dangerous thing, Maja? That this could destroy us. But I guess we didn't make the cosmic rules. It's going to destroy us if we don't face it, and if we face it, it could destroy us.
You're damned if you don't, you're damned if you do. You're already dying. It doesn't get much worse, you know? So, trying to do it, but it is true. It's not comfortable. It's terrible, and trying to help other people deal with shadow work too. We have to think about compassion, but we're not always going to have it. When somebody's having like a shadow behavior that is toxic, everyone's going to get the hell away from them, right? It's going to be
Yeah.
really hard to have compassion when someone's in the middle of the toxic throes of a shadow behavior. So I do feel like if we can raise some awareness to be like, oh, like this person isn't evil, they're just like really struggling with a trauma, or this is a total shadow behavior that they're doing, right? So, and some of the shadows that I talk about in the book are like so societal and big, like I know it's Saturday today, so talking about some of the Saturn shadows,
Yeah.
right, could be good examples, and also just to let people know what I'm talking about. So, like, one of my favorite shadows that you can see everywhere is the Saturn in Aries, which is this idea of the king of the castle, or that there can be only one from
Mm.
Highlander, right? That
Right, right.
this kind of like apex drive that we have, that's also seen in nature, where you have to, which is Cain and Abel too, right? Eliminate the competition, get them all out of the way, shove
Right.
them under the bus, right? This, so that you can stand on the mountaintop and be the supreme victor of the situation. And when we have these shadows, like a Saturn shadow, you will be the victim of this very large archon that will cause even wonderful people to engage this behavior of pushing and shoving everybody out of the way, so that they can be the supreme lord on the top, the billionaire, the one that's, in charge of everything, the lord and master, right?
No, so basically Batman is Bruce Wayne's shadow because he is this alpha male who's suppressed his past, the murder of his parents and all that, and then suddenly, boom, Batman comes out. As somebody mentioned in the chat, the Joker is his further shadow because Batman
Oh,
is so serious by the numbers and all that, and he's forgotten his chaos, and this comes out as the Joker, the ultimate anarchist, the id, if you would.
so true. So true. Yeah.
And there's some good examples. Somebody said Venom from the films. Yeah, the movies, the comics are fine, the movies aren't good, but he would be Spider-Man's shadow. Somebody had a good one which I don't agree with, but I understand is a Fight Club.
Uh-huh.
Tyler Durden being the
Yes.
narrator, but he's not, because most people haven't read the sequel, and Tyler Durden is actually the archetype of destruction. He's actually Shiva. It's like a big reveal.
Oh, huh.
He's not shadow. He is real. That's what I'm saying. And
Mm.
he's the archetype of destruction that, like a mind parasite, decided to, archetypes sometimes disengage and took
Whoa,
over
I
this
didn't know
guy's
that.
mind and come out. So then
Wow.
in the sequel, he's literally trying to set off nuclear bombs across the world instead of destroying banks, because he's like, that's who I am. This is my game. I'm Shiva. This is the game I play.
But
It's
that's
very
where the
simple.
larger archetypes, when we go into shadow, can drive us to
Mm.
do these things. So, like, I do feel like we get presented with people. That's so amazing and cool. I'm going to have to read that. But we get presented with, like, someone will do things like war or genocide on these insane levels. And you're like, how could this happen? Right. But when you understand shadow and what it is, and shadow behavior, and these things that also exist in nature, you're going to understand exactly why this happens, right? And that it's not because some individual is like a bad person or something. This is
Mhm.
far larger than that. And that there's these components of these elements to come in to drive people's behavior, right? Like, you can hear George Bush says, when he goes to war, he's like, God told me to do this war. Do you remember that? Like, it was when
Yes,
we
of course. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
it
yeah.
was like so, and I was like, "Whoa, how is that not schizophrenia?" Like, I can't believe no one's saying anything about this. But that happens all the time, where people are told when they do something atrocious, they'll make a reference to a spiritual entity that directed them to do that activity, right?
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, so it's almost like a spiritual bypassing, or I'm gonna blame it on this creature, but it's actually my shadow, but I'm gonna market it as the God of the Bible or
Yes.
whatever it is. Don't take responsibility. Or you can be like Stalin, who was just completely unconscious when he said, what, one death is a tragedy, but a million is a statistic. I mean,
Oh,
that's pretty warped.
unbelievable. Unbelievable. It's really something. The justification, everybody goes pirate eye, right? Where they can't see the other side of the story or their involvement in it. And this becomes really challenging for us to deal with each other when the person who's performing the atrocities has that villain type of justification. Like Graham was saying, they're doing it and they think this is like a good thing, that they're performing this heroic service or whatever, and they can't see that dark side of it, or that if somebody complains or tries to bring them to justice, you try to raise someone's shadow to their awareness, you're going to get hit with a whole slew of this Darvo defense, manipulation, turnaround, gaslighting, like it wasn't me, right? Kind of garbage. But this is a natural behavior.
Unfortunately, it is. But again, as you said earlier, make it conscious, make the unconscious conscious, as Jung said, and then you don't have to do all these cartwheels or magic spells. It dissipates. It loses its power when you bring it out.
Yes,
So
that's right.
just gotta confess it. Just gotta confess it. So
Confession was actually a good thing that the church did, I feel, and still does. But to get I don't know how honest people are in it. Hopefully they are. But that is like a good way to make sure that we're doing shadow work. Confession is definitely a form of shadow work.
yeah, it's important. And again, it goes to ancient times. People would come to the shaman to talk about anything, sex problems, marital problems. That's one of the reasons the shaman sometimes would cross dress, because if a woman came, he's like, I got to figure this. Talk to me, honey. Talk about the ultimate master of the shadow too was the shaman, the
Yes.
trickster. And I think there is evidence that the confession came from the Manichaeans, the Gnostic Manichaeans, and it was the
Huh.
church who adopted it. So from very
Wow.
good scholarship. So obviously
Hmm.
things change, but again, the Catholic Church was genius at appropriating everything, and nobody did it better.
Yes. Shadow behavior in and of itself, for sure. Right. We'll just
Were
steal
you
it and
ra-
kill everybody that did it so they'll think it's us. Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Were you raised Catholic?
I was raised Episcopalian,
Catholic
'cause
light, or
French
Catholic without the
Canada.
guilt.
Yeah, exactly. It's like all happy fun time with the Episcopal Church. I did go to some Catholic church, when I was little in Canada, because they were all over, but otherwise, no. Episcopalian, yeah.
Cool. Well, I think we're probably getting at the end. Graham, do you have any last question or comments for Maja?
Well, I did want to throw in my 2 cents on Fight Club. I love the movie and all the various different interpretations on it. One of my favorite ones that I saw is how Marla and Tyler were basically the male and female projections. And it's
Oh,
all him trying to come to terms with his testicular cancer and his emasculation thereof. And
Wow.
yeah, no, I thought it was a very interesting interpretation. And I was going to say my last question thought is kind of a more technical one. And what does Maja see as the relationship difference between the shadow and the imago, which is a very classical philosophical concept? It's sort of like almost like the photographic negative on a philosophical concept. They're similar, but I was just curious what her thoughts on those two were. Tag.
Can you talk a little bit about the imago? Is that how you said it? Like an image or reverse image of a thought is what it is?
Yeah, it's kind of like a reverse image. It's expressed in the Bible where it's like man is the imago of God.
Oh, that idolatry. Yes, right. So that kind of like way that we see and present a representation, right? Yeah.
We're like God, God writ little into the real world sort of concept.
Yeah, no, that's very good. Very good point. I feel like if we're the shadow is, it is it's like an opposite light projection, right? So if you think about creation and that aspect of how we're made in that image, what that means to me is it's that projection through the simulation, right? So part of when you come into this awareness and start doing practices, things get real weird with light and shadow that you'll start to be able to physically perceive, and how you'll see the sun or the light hit and you'll try to trace it back. Or I don't know if anyone's done sun gazing, but you can see that the light is actually coming from like a further place, and then the contrast has to do with it. So we also are those projections as well, and then that gets the cast of the shadow. So to me, that sounds like they're very much talking about the same thing in that respect.
Yeah, I mean, we could have a whole bunch of fun with the Bible when Jacob is wrestling the angel. Who's the shadow? Who's the, and of course, Satan. I mean, Jung would say Satan is God's shadow at times. So
That's right. Yeah.
it's all over the place, and you start seeing it everywhere, and you'll find your shadow, and Tyler Durden too. So I love these interpretations. I don't know if you guys heard, somebody had this great theory about the Breakfast Club, that it was all in the head of the crazy girl, because at the end she's the only one who writes the note, and she was alone in detention, and everybody else, the jock and the criminal and the geek, they were all just figments of her imagination. Works
That's
for
good.
me.
I
I
love
like
it.
it.
Yeah, but I think John Hughes actually said no, it was 5 people. But again, these things take their own, they take their own life. As again, as Graham once quoted Alan Moore, all history is fiction. And the more you get into the occult and realize time is not linear and retrocausation, you say, oh, it really is fiction. Beyond the lies they tell us all the time
Yes.
from the powers that be. So well, awesome. Well, as always, this has been an incredible interview. I have it already on the show notes, Maja, and when it comes out on audio tomorrow or Memorial Day, we'll have it on the show notes. So people want to find out more about you is Witch of the Dawn, right?
Yes, witchofthedawn.com. You can find me, and then there's all kinds of information there and of what I'm putting out and doing and all that fun stuff.
Good deal. And of course, your book, Astrology of the Shadow Self, from the great people at Inner Tradition. Shout out to them for always putting out great work.
Whoop, whoop.
The usual places, right? Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, everywhere else.
Yes.
Good deal. Good deal. Well, awesome. Well, for everybody, really appreciate your support, your super chats, you visiting here and supporting us and giving great comments and questions. If you like, of course, please subscribe, share, all that good stuff. Support Aeon Byte. Join us at Astronosis, because I have a feeling we're going to have even deeper conversations than this, and it's going to be amazing. And so Graham, thanks for keeping us company here.
Oh, loved it like always. And thank you, Maja.
Thanks, Graham. It was great talking to you.
And Maja, yes, great talking to you, and good luck with your book. Any other book you could bubbling in your head that has been called, or?
Oh yeah, I'm always working on like 3 or 4 books at the same time, so there'll be more. I won't stop here. Yeah.
Good, good, good. Very excited about that. Well, awesome. Well, always good to see you here on the show, and always enjoy talking to you regardless of the medium.
Same with me, Miguel. Thanks for having me.
Oh, great to have you as always, especially with such a cool book. And yeah, again, thanks for everybody here. There's some nice words from the audience. Ford, yeah, that is a good novel.
Oh, thanks,
Very
Dominic.
intense.
Hi.
Thank you very much, Baza. So for everybody, yeah, please enjoy the rest of your weekend. As I always say, write your own gospel, live your own myth. We're running with those searching for the truth and avoiding those who have found it. And yes, embrace your shadow. Take care, everybody.